Hello, I'm Jasmine.
And I'm Terry.
Nah, man.
And this is the Rereadables. Yeah.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay. So, first things first, we're talking about the casting what ifs.
Yay.
So the question is, how would this novel look through the eyes of another character or time period? And then how would the characters change in a different time period or culture? And
Yes.
so one character we chose was Darcy, and we feel that like through his eyes, we'd be able to see like his relationship with Wickham being portrayed out, and how it kind of affected his life.
Yeah, so, I mean, if we look through his eyes, I mean, some things start to make more sense. Like, before we have like a bias against him, as is mainly told through Elizabeth's eyes. So, like, we didn't know that Wickham was like a gambler and like we didn't know they had like a past history of eloping with like Georgina, and so we really like are prejudiced against
Ooh.
Darcy like Elizabeth is.
Yeah, I agree. Also, a lot of the suspense in the story would have been taken out because if we had known the backstory between Darcy and why we might think he's a bad guy, it basically explains everything that happens in the beginning, and the story would probably be a lot more boring.
Yeah, and like Darcy would probably be like extremely frustrated with like Elizabeth, like she's like cool on to him, and then he tries to propose to her like in his own way, but like she rejects it, even though he's a man of like wealth. So that probably would have been shocking to him.
And then I also feel like his character development would be like more apparent because although like we do see Darcy like have a change of heart throughout the novel, like we never really get to experience how Elizabeth really shaped the person like he transformed into by the end of the novel.
Yeah, like we don't really have those like internal thoughts and like quarrels that he has with himself,
Hmm.
like because he changed like a lot like in Elizabeth's view.
Yeah, and then also, um, we have all this knowledge. We have all this. We know what's going on inside his head, but then we lose everything that's going on inside Elizabeth's head. So we don't understand what's going on with Jane and Bingley, and like we just lose that entire other perspective. So it might just end up like just as confusing, but in a different way.
Yeah, it's like
Hmm.
two dudes trying to help each other out with like relationship.
Like the bro code.
The bro code. Right. So I mean, like looking through like Darcy's eyes is cool and all, but like how would it be like in today's age?
I feel like in today's age, like the concept of marriage is like a lot more different than it was back then. Because I feel like people like a lot of the women in the story, they were like very eager to like, get married, find someone, and I feel like a lot of people might find that peculiar because then like back then they marriage was used to I guess gain a sense of a social status, and like for women like it was mainly a way for them to gain some financial stability since they were very dependent on their husbands for in their families.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like
Okay, go
it seems
ahead.
like in the yeah, it seems like in the book, the main person, the last thing people are thinking of when they're getting married is like love or like
Hmm.
yeah, that stuff. It's like it's all like practical things like gaining social status, like money, connections, and that probably I don't think would happen as much now as it would maybe back when this story was written.
Yeah. So like Elizabeth may seem revolutionary for that time, but today's age, it probably wouldn't be that shocking that she chose what she did because
Yeah,
we don't really place an emphasis on using marriage to gain like wealth
yeah,
and
she'd probably just be a normal person.
yeah, and maybe like her rejection of Mr. Collins, like her like security for her future to like hold on to her father's estate. That wouldn't be as have the shock value that has like in the story like right now.
Hmm. And
Yeah, and
I,
another weird thing is like Lady Catherine trying to get her daughter with Darcy. Yeah, like she's like his aunt, and her daughter is like
who relates
Her
to
his
daughter.
cousin. That's really weird. Like today, that would
I don't know if incest is okay today.
yeah. So that's pretty weird. So you know we should move it on to the next topic, which is stars and characters. So what this is we break down the characters by considering their flaws, moral dilemmas, challenges, triumphs, highs and lows, and how they look today. How would you look at these characters today in today's societal and political climate? So, for Darcy, I think his flaws are pretty apparent to like Elizabeth, like right off the bat, because of his first impression of not really trying to socialize with the other people at the ball when he first meets the Bennett family, and
yeah.
yeah, and
Oh,
Yeah, his biggest flaw is definitely his pride. Like he's too like full of himself. He thinks too highly of himself to like really relate and be personable to other people, which is like seen like the very first ball where he refuses to like talk to anyone, socialize and all.
yeah,
yeah,
because it's pride that makes him believe that like he's better than Elizabeth. Because the first time he sees her, like she just thinks of her as tolerable, but like not worthy of like his companionship. And
yeah.
then, oh yeah, continue.
Oh, so these flaws, ultimately culminate in his attempt at proposing to her, like, but in like a condescending way, where he's like he goes against my better judgment to be proposing to you for she's like such a lower class than him, and that really like gives off the wrong impression to Elizabeth, so she like rejects him, even though this is
Yeah,
like the opportunity of her life, which is a shock.
yeah, that's true. Like even when he's like proposing her to her, he's still like full of pride, making sure she knows like he makes sure she knows like that she is like below him. And, like yeah, big flaw.
Very, 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 very big flaw. So I think a triumph that he has is paying Wickham to marry Lydia, because that's like part of his redemption arc in the eyes of Elizabeth. Because before that, she didn't really see him any like other way besides being like a brat, like a rich brat.
And then another thing that I could see as his triumph is we persuading Mr. Bingley to go back to Jane and then propose to her. Because in the beginning of the story, he was against Jane and Mr. Bingley being together because he thought that Bennet's reputation would ruin Mr. Bingley's reputation. But after falling in love with Elizabeth, he's able to get past that social barrier, and then yes.
Yeah, it like shows like his progression and growth throughout the story. How he's like that's not as important to him as important to him. Like he learned like it's not like a defining factor.
Yeah, and then after like after redeeming himself, goes on this whole spiel about how he's been this one way throughout his whole life, and he holds all these like prejudices against the lower social class because of his stature and his wealth. And I feel like that's like a very important moment for him, because he's finally admitting to himself what he really wants, and like breaking himself down, all of his flaws as well. And he finally like confesses like to Elizabeth like in a manner that isn't like condescending like before. So in the end, he's finally able to marry her, and that's like a happy ending that everybody can enjoy. So for another star of the story, it's Elizabeth.
Oh yes.
Yes.
so so she's
Why do you think Elizabeth is another star of so?
because she's the main character, dude.
Oh, that is true. That is true.
Well, a major flaw she has is her prejudice
Oh, I didn't see that one.
against Darcy because of the ball and his overall demeanor as because of his wealth, what she assumes is from his wealth.
And then
And
another
yeah.
thing that she's flawed at is that she's very quick to judge others. So when she first meets Mr. Wickham, she believes all the lies he tells her with his relationship with Mr. Darcy, even though it's more dramatized and it's not really what really happened between him and Darcy. But in her
Yeah,
hatred,
not. I think not. Oh, sorry, keep going.
oh no, you go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so like I feel like not only is she like quick to judge others, she's also she also sticks with those judgments and she's like very stubborn. But she thinks
Hmm.
that she's like really good at reading people, I guess.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
just makes her prejudices even worse than like they already are.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, she's kind of prideful in her own wit.
Oh,
Yeah.
she's proud of her prejudices.
And she's really like, yeah, she has a lot of pride in herself, like, in a way because she doesn't really want to succumb to these societal pressures for her to like marry someone that she doesn't really love, and this is like shown when Collins tried to marry her, and she responded with, you could not make me happy, and I'm convinced that I'm the last person in the world who would make you so." And that's a crazy shutdown to
Is that like
Colin.
that's not like prideful though. She's just like she doesn't like it. That's not something.
Yeah, but like she's holding herself above his request. Like any girl, like Charlotte would have instantly married Collins because she was not in a position to like decline him. Like her like future wealth was like in jeopardy, and she took the high ground in like rejecting him because she didn't really like him. She didn't like him at all.
Okay, well, prideful is too negative. Let's just say she was strong and independent.
She's a strong, independent woman, and
And
yeah, she triumphs a lot in this novel because she's the main character.
She's a
Um,
hero.
yeah, she's a heroine. Um,
That's right.
like a major one was when, like towards the end of the book, when Lady Catherine confronts her about Darcy's proposal to her, and tries to intimidate her to like declining marriage, and she doesn't give in to her request, so she doesn't.
She doesn't care.
She doesn't.
She
she
doesn't care.
she doesn't care. She's like, I'm not
Do what I
gonna.
want.
Yeah. So that was a huge moment, and you know, when Darcy like proposing her again, he does like the reveal where he's like, you heard that, heard about that, so he knew that she would accept marriage with him. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, basically, what makes her like such a hero is because she thinks more like maybe like people would today. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
time machine stuff going on,
yeah,
time
she
travel
doesn't
stuff
let
going.
like the people around her influence her actions. Like when her mother was like trying to beg her to marry Mr. Collins in order to protect their family reputation, but she knows that like it's not good for her, that she doesn't want to marry someone just because of the wealth, but someone that like she actually loves.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty modern concept for back then to
Yes.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then
I think most people would think this way rather than you know do like marriage, like we said, how they performed it back then.
yeah, just defied basically every stereotype
Of
that
a
there
woman.
might have been for like women in like back then, and that's just what makes her a star.
And moving on to our next category, it's those who have aged best slash those who have aged worst, considering the characters, the themes, the symbols, the figurative language, allusions, and imagery. So, who
Yeah,
do you
once
guys
again, ooh,
who do you guys
like
think aged the best?
100% Elizabeth, basically for the reason I just said. She's literally a modern woman because she doesn't listen to all these people or she doesn't follow the example of those around her for marrying for reasons basically other than love. And her own values that she has to like respect her partner. Like that was probably a mind-boggling concept at the time because that's basically what the story is telling us.
Yeah. Uh, what about who aged the worst? You guys believe? Um,
Well, for me, who aged the worst, I chose a theme, and it's the expectation of women. And I feel like women in the book are portrayed um, in a way where like they have to follow a certain standard in society. And then, like for instance, like all of like the Bennett sisters were trying their best to find like a husband in order to like protect their family's social status, and then to help their family gain more financial stability. And I feel like this is kind of like a very degrading way of portraying women. Like a lot of people in today's society wouldn't really like follow these standards, and I
uh,
feel like yeah. Oh, continue.
oh yeah, continue.
Uh, and for like I think a lot of people now they don't really consider marriage as like a way to gain stability in society, but rather it's like a choice that they make for themselves, not for like not, and it's not like really a social pressure that's pushed against them.
Yeah, I mean, those who marry for money are like called gold diggers. They're not really the norm of society nowadays.
Yeah, it's kind of looked down upon.
Yes.
Or yeah,
Yeah, and the title of this book remains relevant today.
whoa,
Wow.
Whoa, crazy! Wow, you know,
human nature.
yeah, it's human nature to be prideful and prejudiced in a way.
Yeah, because I think people just naturally judge others like instinctively when they see them.
Yeah,
I
Because
could
like,
agree with that.
yeah, and with that, we're gonna end this podcast. On Pride
yeah,
and Prejudice. Yeah.